On our casting panel today for Emmys 2020 contenders, we've got David Rubin, who's here for both Big Little Lies on HBO and Little Fires Everywhere on Hulu. David, I wanted to start with Big Little Lies. I'm sure this question has come up many times from your friends and your family and your peers. How in the world did you get Meryl Streep to do this show for you?
The truth is that she was, in fact, a huge fan of the originals and also had relationships with a number of the stars of the show. So it wasn't obviously an open call that we had that Meryl Streep happened to show up for. It was a conversation that started pretty early on when David E. Kelley, the writer of the show, had envisaged a follow-up storyline for Nicole Kidman's character, because so much of the second season was about the recovery from the drama of the first season and how each of these characters were impacted in many ways traumatically from the events of the first season. And we realized that this was becoming a sort of towering figure in the second season. And whenever you have a female role that is as towering as that, I can't imagine that Meryl Streep doesn't come to mind. So very early on, overtures were made to her, and she was extremely receptive. And I know it's unusual for her to be in a series, but I find that she is always open to possibilities, to challenges, to things out of her comfort zone or out of her past experience. When we had a table reading up in Monterey for the first time with the cast all assembled for the second season, she came up to me, and I didn't really have a relationship with her prior. I'd met her in passing. She said, she was very complimentary about the first season. And then she took me aside and she said, thanks for thinking of me, and thanks for the job. And I thought, really? Meryl Streep? It was a lovely thing to have said, but I believe in earnest she's interested in challenging opportunities, and she saw the value in the role.
Oh, she's perfectly cast. I just figure everybody in the industry think, if we could get Meryl Streep for this project, it would make the project so much better.
Well, as a casting director, and all of us on the panel know exactly what that remark is like, because we hear it often. But in this time, I really sensed, based on the quality of the writing, that we had a real shot. And she mined it for all it was worth.
Tell me, from your perspective, how was it different planning for season 2? Because you already had your core group of regular cast members, and then you bring in new characters. What was it like for you on the differences between 1 and 2?
I think it was about finding people to play these new roles that came into it that could meet head to head with the formidable performances given by the cast in the first season. So, for example, there's a love interest character for Zoe Kravitz's role, who was a surfer who worked at a museum up in the Monterey Aquarium with her. And for Shailene Woodley, for Shailene Woodley's character. And we needed somebody who had, we found in Douglas Smith, a kind of a safe haven for somebody who was open with Shailene's character and helped her through the trauma that she'd had in the first season. In the case of Zoe Kravitz's character, David Kelley wrote a role for her mother. And this actually was about exploring trauma prior to the first season, really a childhood trauma and her relationship with her mother. So we needed an incredibly powerful woman to sort of explore the damage that had been created in Zoe's character since childhood. It was a challenging role to find, and I actually was at the Sundance Film Festival. I had already auditioned many, many actresses for it. And Sundance is my happy place as a casting director and as an audience member, and I see 5 films a day, really sort of drown myself in talent up there. And I saw a film called Burden, and there was an extraordinary actress, I mean, really someone that I had never seen before, named Crystal Fox. Turned out she was living in Atlanta, tracked her down, had her audition, and she surpassed all of the auditions that I had seen. And if I hadn't been in that screening at that moment, wouldn't have happened. But she was able to go head to head with Zoe in that storyline, and really extraordinary. So it was really about finding people who could carry those new storylines and give them equal importance to the memory that everybody had of the first season.
I also wanted to ask about Little Fires Everywhere today. Also with Reese Witherspoon, by the way. That's a nice combination of jobs to work on two things with her in the past year.
I basically work for the Reese Witherspoon channel, and I'm happy to go wherever she goes because she's enterprising and has fantastic taste in material and a delight to work with.
Well, to me, one of the challenges you had here on this particular cast, and this is a first time out on this one, unlike Big Little Lies, you've not only got to find children that seem like they would be Reese's children and Kerry Washington's children, but you've got to find children that can look like them in the past as themselves. So tell us about those two challenges.
One of the things that attracted me to the project, first of all, a lot of the narrative is about parenting, particularly about mothers and children. There was a unique challenge in putting together the children of Josh Jackson and Reese Witherspoon because there were 4 kids. They were each 1 year apart, and they all were very specific, so that we needed to find people, and they all had very challenging storylines, each on their own. So as soon as I found somebody that could handle the material and seemed right for the character, I had to pray that they seemed 1 year older or 1 year younger than the other leading contenders that we had found for the other roles. So it was just really good fortune that we found people who had the genetic connection to the parents, had the right qualities, very specific qualities for each of those characters, and had the chops to deliver it. So extremely lucky there. And also the producers knew that we needed time, and when you're casting children, time is really of the essence because it's a numbers game. You have to see a lot of kids to find the ones that really rise to the top in terms of your needs. And in the case of Kerry Washington's daughter, that was an extremely challenging role, and Lexi Underwood, who is primarily from the New York stage and touring companies, although she had done some television, really met that challenge, and I felt a real connection to what Kerry was doing with the character. And then finding young Reese and young Kerry, we wanted people who were not going to do a slavish imitation of those actresses, but what I did was I invited the finalists into my office, and I got permission to show them some dailies from the shoot so that they could see what Reese and Kerry were doing with those roles. And we did, after they watched those scenes, we discussed the characters. I discussed it with them and their impressions of it. And then ultimately they delivered their own version of those roles because those characters were different as young people than they ultimately became. So they had to find a way of evoking those personalities, but creating something fresh. And I think both Tiffany Boone and Anna Sophia Robb did an extraordinary job of connecting the dots because their episode was theirs. In fact, Reese and Kerry basically took a back seat in that episode, gave them top billing in the screen credits, and we needed people who were going to be able to carry an entire episode on their own, and I thought they really did magnificently.
What is it about Reese and Kerry in this particular project? Their chemistry, but also their animosity in a way. They play off of each other really well. From your perspective on the casting side, and of course, they're two of the best in the business. But what did you see from them as you watched the project?
I actually saw the result of two people who are not only the two stars of a series, but two producers of the series. They were absolute partners from start to finish, from the optioning of the material to the writing of the material through the casting process. They really were my partners in it, and all the department heads partners. So I think you had a situation where it wasn't just two people coming onto a project, shaking hands on the first day on the set and trying to make sense of it. They had already united their visions in what this was about. And there are differences to the novel that they felt were very important to make. The exploration of racial injustice, racial privilege is an added element since the book was adapted. And they were both deeply invested in what the story had to say. So I really think what we saw was a level of comfort, a level of intimacy, and a level of bravery, because they'd already communicated all of that before they hit the set.